This week on Hooligan Nation, we have special guests, and they may be smarter than us. But hey, that ain't saying much. We discuss KISS Unplugged and the reunion. So don't go away, because you got
nothing to lose.
You got
nothing to lose.
You got nothing.
You wanted the best. Well, they retired. So you got two dudes in a garage.
Talking KISS. Welcome back to Hooligan Nation, a KISS-Centric podcast. I'm Anthony.
I'm Rocco.
Yes, you are. Today we have Victor Ruiz from Signals from Mars podcast and KISS-Centric of the Decibel Geeks podcast. For anyone that doesn't know Victor, check him out at signalsfrommars.com. Victor, what have you had going on over at Signals from Mars lately?
Well, we've had plenty of voting going on. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a show. So by the time this comes out, it'll be out already. You've already had me on the show discussing the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, I've kind of decided that I've had enough with those trolls and getting, getting us riled up every year, that on Signals from Mars, we're going to start our own Hall of Fame, and on a yearly basis, just vote on bands that we love, and talk about them on a yearly basis that we think deserve recognition. So I had people vote on 10 bands that they would induct in their own Hall of Fame. And I've received all types of all types of lists, all types of different bands, hard rock and metal, which it'll make for some interesting conversation tomorrow night. So I'm sure by the time this comes out, the episode will be live, and you can either agree, shake your fist at the screen and say, what the hell were you guys talking about? And if so, start compiling your own list and get ready for next year.
Chris, it's great to finally meet you.
Yes,
Likewise.
welcome.
Yeah, good to be here.
We do like your podcast, and I have listened to it. We like what you do on there. Can you give us a little bit of a bio on who you are for those that may not know you?
Sure. KISS-Centric, I'm the co-host of Decibel Geek podcast. We've been around since 2011. Yes, we're really that old. Over 600 episodes, still going strong. We'll never quit our day jobs, but enjoy talking rock every week. And there's never a shortage of stuff to talk about. And for KISS fans, tons and tons and tons of KISS content over the years. Probably most well known for our Vinnie Vincent specials, which is a whole saga that started when he was still in hiding, and us doing speculative episodes about what he could be up to and interviewing people he worked with, all the way up to his comeback, meeting him, interviewing him on the show, and then also having the predictable falling out with Vinnie Vincent, as everyone else seems to have. So it's all documented on the podcast. There's several episodes to that. We've interviewed Ace Frehley. We've interviewed a lot of roadies and people behind Lydia Chris, a lot of roadies that worked on the original crew. So a lot of KISS heavy and very specific content. So if you really, really want to nerd out and want to hear from the costume designer for the Dynasty Tour, our show is a good place to go. So, that's kind of a summary of it. I also founded and still help out with the Rock and Pod Expo, because doing a weekly show wasn't enough, because I'm OCD and I had to create a convention on top of that. And so we did that, where started in Nashville just as a way to get together with my friends that we always talk to over Skype and Zoom and all that stuff. So it was a hangout, but then had enough people I had interviewed that were guests show up as guests as a favor to me. And then by after year 2, the guests are thanking me for helping give them another place to promote their stuff through these shows and connecting them with these shows. So then it's like, oh, light bulb goes off. We have something here. So it's just grown from there. And it's happening on April 11th through 13th this year. And I'm excited because I get to just show up and be a podcaster this time. So it's going to be a fun weekend. We've got the expo on Saturday, and then there's concerts all throughout the weekend, and even a comedy show to wrap up the weekend on Sunday at John Bon Jovi's bar downtown Nashville with Don Jameson, Courtney Cronin, Chris Kale, and Craig Gass, and Hal Sparks, who you may remember from all the I Love the 80s and 90s shows from VH1 back in the day. So yeah, it's a full weekend, rockinpod.com, decibelgeek.com, and also, more importantly, longtime friend of Victor Ruiz, who's one of the greatest people I know.
Wow.
So, Chris, where does your KISS fandom journey begin? Can you give us a little bit of an explanation?
Yeah, it's funny because my older brother had a friend across the street that guy was a big KISS fan. They were a couple years older than me, so they were old enough to remember to be there during the glory time or remember it. And I remember kind of mocking them as I was a kid, just getting into music. And my earliest memory, though, is my brother had a Peter Criss puzzle where he's holding two panthers on chains. And I remember that image gave me nightmares because my mother still talks about it to this day, thinking that like Peter Criss was going to let go of the chains and the panthers were going to kill me. And also, KISS came to Atlanta on the Creatures of the Night tour, and I remember seeing a video clip of the news covering them coming, and showing a clip of Gene spitting blood, and I remember that scaring me. So that was like my earliest memories of KISS. But then I got into rock through like the Twisted Sister videos and the Come On Feel the Noise video. I was like 6, 7 at the time, so those were anthems, and they were easy to get into rock that way. And then that led to the hair bands. So Poison, I got really into. Rat, Bon Jovi, I was like 11 at the time. So around that time was when Crazy Nights came out, and I was big into Dial MTV. And for whatever reason, even though Crazy Nights was not a big selling album, probably because people at Polygram were calling the phone lines, KISS did really well on Dial MTV at the time. So I remember the Crazy Nights video, liking the song, but then also the Reason to Live video. That one really got jammed down everyone's throats. So somebody from the record company was bugging the hell out of MTV to play that video. But I remember that kind of opened the door, and I was watching that video one day on Dial MTV, and my older brother walked in and he goes, "Oh God, is that KISS?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, that's not really KISS." And my brother wasn't even a big KISS fan or a rock fan even, but he had albums and stuff he had gotten. He goes back in his bedroom, comes out with a copy of Alive on vinyl, and he goes, "This is KISS. You need to listen to this." So for some reason, I pick album 2, side 2, and put that on first. Because I was a kid. And the first thing that comes on is the Rock Bottom intro, which is kind of mellow. And I'm like, I don't care about that. So I skip to the next track, which is the intro to Cold Gin. So my first real exposure to real KISS was the intro to Cold Gin on Alive, which, as everyone knows, is the full on, I heard you people like to take a taste of alcohol and the Southern Comfort and tequila and all that. So that was what made me fall in love with the band around 87, 88.
And it's all KISStory from there.
Yeah, it's all KISS. Yeah, then it was a great time to get into the band because then I could go back and discover all the back catalog. So I remember buying Crazy Nights, Dynasty, and Ace's solo album on the same day. So I was like very confused listening to all of it because I was like, wow, what a schizophrenic
All
band.
over the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost to the end of doing album reviews, and it is the most schizophrenic thing.
It really
Just-
is.
It's been interesting. By the way, Victor, I love Carnival of Souls.
Oh,
I
do
do
you?
too.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I was curious because I started getting into grunge when Pearl Jam 10 came out, and I completely I knew Hate, the only song I knew,
Mhm.
and I like it.
We did a full like track by track making of episode with Toby Wright on that album. And he had a lot of great stories about the making of that record.
Shit, if I could stop editing videos, I'd just spend the next couple weeks on your podcast.
Oh, yeah, if you're a KISS nerd, there's a treasure trove of nerdy stuff to get into. We talked to one of the guys from the football staff or somebody from Cadillac, Michigan, but like they had the whole story. They had all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, like if you're into the really nerdy stuff, did you guys talk about or see the Billy Corgan interview?
Yeah,
he
oh,
did?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I
So-
love it.
It's a great interview, and Billy did everything anyone a KISS fan could do to try to get real answers out of him. But I noticed, and it's like it's a mix of, I don't think it bums me out to realize that Gene only views Kiss as product and
Yeah.
and not as music. And
Well said.
but I think the reasons for that are twofold. I think the one part of it is he is a humble person when it comes to his creativity.
Mhm.
Like that's like the one thing where he is humble, because he's always like, you bring up the Beatles, he'll say we can't shine their shoes. You know, he'll go on and wax poetic about them. But when you bring up Kiss, he just minimizes it. So I
Oh
think
my
he is a
God.
bit,
He did on that interview. He did it like crazy.
yeah, and he's a bit humble about it. But also, I think, well, here's here's the other nice thing I'm going to say. Now I'm going to say the conspiracy theorist part. So the next nice thing I'm going to say is, it's one of those things where he doesn't want to. How do I put this? For all the years of critics bashing the band and people downplaying their musical ability, I think he just got beat down by it over the years, where he just was like, I'm going to face facts. We're a style over substance band, and I'm just going to get on board with it. That's one nice way of putting it. The other way of
That's
putting it
interesting.
is, well, they sold their soul to the devil a long time ago when they put other people in Ace and Peter's makeup and then started using tracks live. So the dignity part kind of went out the window a long time ago. So it's kind of hard to get back on the train now. So those are my takeaways from that interview.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that I think that one, it's probably hard for him to take a compliment for what he does musically.
Always has been, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think if you listen to, for example, if you watch the old Kissology DVDs and you listen to their comments, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, he's so honest." No, if you actually listen to those commentary tracks, they're pretty frank about stuff during that, and they cop to screwing up stuff with like Eric Carr and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, too, he's kind of like, well, we made all this money. It really doesn't matter if we were uber talented or not, because we got what we ultimately wanted anyway. So I think that to an extent, he's downplaying, his musicianship, but at the same time, he's like, well, we're still here to talk about it. We made plenty of money off of it. And regardless, go ahead.
But if he took that philosophical approach to talking about other bands, I would get on board with that. But then you bring up the Beatles or other artists, and he'll just get into nostalgia mode and really go into, and he'll dive in deep on stuff, on music for other artists. But it's like with them, it's just like, I don't know, or is he just like, we've already compromised so much, I just can't give it any credit anymore. But then again, I don't know. He's always been that way, though. I mean, even back in the day, he would downplay that stuff. So that's the thing where I was hoping with Billy Corgan, I think Paul would have been the better interview. I think Paul would have been a little more willing to go into how good the music is. But instead, we get Paul on Richard Marx, and well, that's a whole different story.
Music we are listening to.
I'll recommend two newer bands that I'm into that I always try to pimp when I go on shows. Both from the UK. One is called Massive Wagons. Check them out. They've got several albums out. They just blew everyone's minds on the Monsters of Rock cruise. I've been like championing them for years. And then the other, Massive Wagons is what they're called.
Spotify?
Oh yeah, they're all over it. Yeah. And the other one is Florence Black. It's a band. And they're also from the UK. And both bands are like two of my favorites.
Cool.
Victor?
I mean, I've been listening to a lot of old stuff, a lot of new stuff, but today, given that I'm preparing for the end of month albums review, I started listening to the new album from Envy of None. If you don't know who that is, that's Alex Lifeson from Rush's new band. This is their second album. It sounds nothing like Rush.
N-O-N-N-U-N or N-O-N-E? Envy of None?
Yeah, Envy of None.
It's N-U-N?
No, I'm guessing it's N-O-N-E.
Yeah.
Envy of the Nun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although you're onto something for a band name right there.
There you go.
It's a good satanic band name.
but anyway, this is probably a little bit more rocking than the first album. It really sounds like 90s alternative music, and what I've heard so far off of this album, it sounds a lot like the band Garbage. So there is that.
Very cool. Very cool. I don't have anything from music I'm listening to. I'm listening to KISS.
I've been watching Billy Corgan. I watched Wolfgang Van Halen, and in the interview he said, and I remembered liking it at the time. He said he was talking about how his father's favorite, one of his favorite albums all time was "So" from Peter Gabriel, and I've been listening to it again, and I actually really like it again. So I've been listening to that.
Hey, let me ask you a question.
What do you got?
Do you YouTube?
I'm always on YouTube.
When you YouTube, how do you support the YouTubers that you like?
If I find something I dig, I subscribe to it and I hit like right away.
That's a great idea. I'm sure the creators appreciate your support.
I would think so.
You think maybe now's a good time to ask everyone in the audience to support us?
Absolutely.
To everyone in the audience, please subscribe to our little channel. And while you're there, hit the like button.
We're enjoying what we're doing and we want to continue to grow the hooligan community.
We appreciate all your support.
Absolutely.
So today we wanted to talk about the entire KISS Unplugged, KISS reunion era. And we wanted to bring you guys in and get your take on it. Now, this entire era of KISS is just so special to me personally because I was too young, and I think all of you guys are kind of in the same boat. I was too young really to get the original makeup era the first time around. So I got it. Like I came into KISS around probably the end of Creatures of the Night, beginning of Lick It Up. We both saw KISS for the first time on the Animalized tour. I think what makes both of us a little different from most people is we immediately went backwards into the makeup era. And I think it's safe to say that's probably our favorite era of the band, but they were in the non-makeup years. So when they reunited, that was like a gift from God. It really was. I mean, we discussed in a past episode. I can remember when that Rise to It video came out. I was 100% convinced that means they're getting back together. That means they're putting the makeup on. That means this, that means that. And then it was another, 5 years, I think, 5, 6 years before it actually happened.
Yeah.
But everything was surrounded by them going back to the makeup, at least for me. So starting with Unplugged, like that, to me, when Unplugged came on, it was in the bag. They were getting back together. They were putting the makeup on. So why don't we try to start there with who watched Unplugged when it originally aired. It wasn't live, but it was taped.
Yeah.
And Victor, let's start with you. What was your thoughts?
First of all, I didn't know if they were going to be releasing an album or anything. So I had hooked up a stereo to my TV and I recorded the MTV broadcast and played the ever living crap out of that because I didn't know. And I don't think, any of us knew if that was going to come out, if they were going to make stuff work with Ace or Peter or not. The set list was cool. The conventions were happening at that time. So there were bootlegs of the conventions out there as well that were floating around. And yeah, I specifically remember I was working with my old man at the time, had to pick up a one of the machinists, and he gets into my pickup truck and he's like, wait a second, is this KISS? That's off of That's Coming Home. That's off of their what's that? Their first album, their second album? And we start talking about it because at the time, I didn't know who was into KISS or anything remotely like what I listened to. And in that short, like 20 minutes where I had to drive him from one side of the job site to the other, we were talking about KISS and AC/DC and Black Sabbath and stuff like that. And yeah, it was great. I remember that he wanted a copy. I don't remember if I ever gave him a copy or not of that. But again, there was a whole like uncertainty of the time. It was kind of the uniqueness, and I don't want to sound like an old fart, but where you didn't know what was going to happen next. I'm sure there were people that were way privy into what was going on because, as Chris had said before we started recording, Ace and Peter had been touring. So by the time all this came about, I'm sure there were things in the woodworks already that some people knew behind the scenes, and there are people that I know of that worked at MTV, and maybe those people knew about it, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting to have Peter and Ace back, to have a great set list, to know that there was more than what we got, because ultimately there was stuff on the KISS box set, like Come On and Love Me, that they had done. And there's an extended bootleg out there from that night where they did, I think, God of Thunder, and did
The country western version of God of Thunder too.
a western version of God of Thunder. Yeah, and there's something else that I'm missing. There's another song and possibly a cover.
Hard Luck Woman with Paul singing was another thing they did that night.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, I've
So-
never heard that.
Yeah, neither have I.
Oh, actually, well, I don't know. YouTube used to have the unedited MTV Unplugged, but I don't know if it's still there. It probably got gooched though. Who knows?
So when you're watching this,
Yeah.
do you think, oh, this is a reunion? Like this is gonna did you think that it was going to turn into what it turned into?
I
I
did.
was hoping. I mean, there was Gene and Paul had jumped on stage with Ace at the Limelight in New York a few years before that. So
Victor, that's a pizza place now.
The Limelight?
The
is a
Limelight is a
place?
pizza place now.
So-
Yeah,
so-
I'm not
depressing.
check it out on YouTube. I'm not kidding.
it's gone from being a church to a rock club, back to a church, to a fitness center, to now a pizza joint.
Yes, I've been there many times back in the day.
It'll
Wow.
be a vape store any day now.
That's
Look,
true.
You got to come from Spain. You got to come from Nashville, and we got to go to the Limelight
For
and
some
get
pizza.
Go have some pizza at the Limelight. Yeah.
Yes.
that'll
So
work.
So in the back of my mind, is it all right? Is this like that night that they got up and jammed? It was Deuce and something else with Ace. Is it that, or could we be seeing, could we be seeing them come back? Could we see Ace, Peter, Bruce, and Eric go out on tour together?
I
Could they-
remember that talk.
yeah. Could we see them bring Vinny back? Could we see Mark St. John was alive at the time? Could we see a tour where they're playing all eras of the band?
Ugh.
That's something that
That's his dream. That's his dream reunion tour.
But that's up until the very end. I think that's and Bruce has talked about this. That's where I think there was the biggest disconnect between them and the fans. That the fans at least wanted something with everyone.
Right.
And
Sorry to cut you off, but it's like that's what irritated me the most. It was like, you guys did sell millions of albums through the non-makeup years. Millions of albums.
I
So it's
second
like-
that motion.
You're acting like you didn't sell anything. It's like there's
Yeah.
plenty of people and so many people just like me that got into them during those years. It's like,
Well-
it just blows me away that the way they downplay that whole era. It
Well,
really
this may-
pisses me off.
And this makes, I mean, it's, I guess, considered makeup because they had two albums, one with makeup, one without. But like going through all the albums like we have, like Creatures is right up there with me. It's if it's not my number one, it's right below out of their entire catalog.
I
So-
agree.
Yeah, I mean that the more I listen to that, like I'm addicted to that album since we reviewed it.
it's got a whole vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they couldn't have done "Tears Are Falling" with Bruce. They couldn't have done one song with Bruce.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't get it, man.
I mean, I get all the shit with Ace. I get all the stuff with Vinny. But with Bruce, who's always been a good soldier, who's never had a bad thing to say about them, they couldn't have brought him up for one song, even if it was just Rock and Roll All Night.
And they know he knows how to navigate through their bullshit.
Well,
You
and
know what I mean?
all they would have had to do, bring Bruce up, even have a track ready for Paul with a click track, play Eric Carr footage from the video, and do "Tears Are Falling." Do the
Yeah.
one song. You covered 2 bases right there with one song.
Yep. That's it.
One thing I'll say about the Unplugged.
That was a hit too.
Yeah.
Not like people don't remember that
I
song.
got to tell you guys, that wouldn't have been enough for me. I felt like the last 2 shows in the Garden
Oh, they
should
could
have
have done a
been
lot more.
should have been. I mean, I got this crazy idea that I don't know what I'm saving it for, but I'm saving it for some. I got this crazy idea, and I haven't figured out how they would have been actually able to do it. Like, I can understand Gene and Paul are about the money. We've been over that. I mean, I'm sure we've all been over this 100 times on different podcasts. Gene and Paul are about the money. So I can understand they're not going to go out on tour and they're not going to pay Bruce Kulick, and they're not going to pay Ace and Peter, and they're not going to pay 8 musicians to go out on tour. But the last 2 shows in the Garden should have represented the entire era of KISS somehow, some way. And I don't think videos would have been enough.
No, they blew it.
I don't think one song is enough. And honestly, at least for me, that Nothing to Lose on Unplugged,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to me, there is no better version of it. I love that Unplugged album from start to finish. If I could rank that as my #1 album, I would rank that as my #1 album. And it's pretty much because I think the original version of Coming Home sucked for
That's a much
100
better
different
version.
100 different reasons. That unplugged version of Coming Home is incredible, and Nothing to Lose with Eric Singer and Peter Criss,
Yeah.
both on the drums and both singing, is just, that's the top of the mountain for me. And on top of that, I from the movie, I always liked the acoustic version of Beth, and that's what I got. I don't like the whole symphony orchestra thing in Beth. So they gave me an acoustic version of Beth. Like, I think that's
But
an
I mean-
incredible record. And I thought at the time, I thought, wow, there's something to exploit right there.
Well, I've said this to you before, and I've watched so many videos on KISS. I've seen him in concert live. That was, I use my word, the organic. Like when I seen that, for the moment, there was no animosity, ego. Like they looked, you seen the joy of them playing together in that acoustic moment. Like it was, to me, it was something that I've never seen from them. It was just, there was a purity about it to me. You've seen the joy in their face, especially I got Nothing to Lose, especially when you seen, like, you know, Eric starting out the Got Nothing to Lose and pass it on to Peter, and you could see Peter just eating it up, loving every minute of it.
Yeah, the moment when Peter comes in with the first, "You got nothing to," you couldn't.
Yeah.
Like the hair stood up on my arms. When I was
Same
like,
here.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That was like it was like, it felt like that big dose of original KISS magic. It was like,
Yeah.
it was like, holy shit, that's what people were talking about. Like you could feel the chemistry between
Yeah.
them. And yeah, it was I had a feeling it was gonna lead to a tour for sure.
Well, after the popularity of that pre-internet, you knew the money was out there.
Oh.
I mean, you knew that that's what everybody wanted. I think a lot of I can only speak for me, but it as it turned out, it was a rough time because I wasn't any kind of attached really to Eric Singer, but to watch Bruce Kulick get pushed aside um, was kind of the hard part of that. Like there was no way to keep him involved in any way.
That was
Where if they would have stayed without makeup, we would have all complained. I mean, we're KISS fans. We're all going to complain no matter what. But it would have been nice, I don't know, to see something, do something, maybe do a few shows of all of them, Eric Singer, Bruce Kulick, without makeup, even if it wasn't acoustic. They just dropped that whole entire era and ran with the makeup, and they've run with the makeup ever since. Actually, I meant to ask you that, guys, this. When's the last time either one of you were on KISS Online?
Well, I checked it out the other day because of the redesign, but it had been a while before that.
Victor?
Yeah, I think it was when they released one of the picture discs where I'd clicked on a newsletter that I received just to see what merch was being sold, because they were selling animalized merch like a year before KISS Online did. They were selling it here through a site called EMP. EMP is a big hard rock and metal site in Europe. They're out of Germany, and they have all types of merch and albums and just different things that aren't available in the States. So I actually have a sleeveless Animalized shirt that looks like the cover of the VHS that came out. And I was looking to see if they had something similar on the site. So it was I'm pretty sure it was that.
Chris, when you were on there, did you notice something? Anything jump out at you?
Well, they've definitely gone back to promoting more of the original lineup. Yeah, it's you don't see much of Tommy and Eric anymore. It's Ace and Peter everywhere, it looks like.
Yeah, you can definitely tell Pop House is running the show now and what direction they're going.
Which and I hope, and that's great, but I hope they also don't, forget the 80s lineups. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe they'll embrace all of fandom, because we talked about it on my show. Some of the KISS podcasters out there got flown out to Vegas for a meeting and got like a focus group where they were asked for their opinions on stuff, and which that's of course started off a whole bunch of drama, but which is stupid. Podcast feuds are the dumbest ever. But anyway, Victor knows what I'm talking about. No, but like the fact that they're even flying fans out to get fans' perspective, I think we should all view that as a positive. At least they're getting that opinion. Whether they run with it or not, that's the real question.
Well, Chris Jericho will keep reminding them.
Yeah,
He'll keep pushing it.
As cringy as Jericho can be to me, I love that he has such a passion for the 80s kids.
That's what I love.
I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And him and Bruce are pretty much the only two that carry that torch at this point.
Yeah.
And the fans, because you can't get Gene or Paul to bring it up. Like they won't even talk about it.
They think
they
think it's bad business, but they're not. It's not good.
It's over. Embrace everything.
They're thinking of, if it didn't sell big, it sucks. Always annoyed me. It's like, but they'll make the exception for Revenge and Creatures, both of which tanked. It's like those albums both bombed, but you'll prop those up as, some of your greatest achievements. But then when it comes to Animalize, through Hot in the Shade, you act like it doesn't exist. And it's like, you had big singles off those records. What do you think? It baffles me. It's like, that's a whole other income stream that they don't even, although they're doing it with off the soundboard, I guess. So, although you got to order a CD from Japan if you want a CD. I mean, come on.
I still believe that as soon as they sell the vinyl,
the CD will come out. Yeah, probably.
They're not stupid. And you know what? As soon as the CD comes out, there'll be a cassette tape. And if
Yeah.
it keeps selling, they'll put an 8-track out.
Although most of these things, if it's just reissues of old stuff, I don't tend to buy it. Just personally, just 'cause I'm like, I already have it, and a colored picture disc isn't going to do it for me. But the Asylum off the soundboard, it sold out like in minutes, which is probably eBay flippers for the most part. But to them, they don't care. They're like, we got the money. We don't care where it comes from.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the off the soundboards. I mean, the Mark St. John show, I listened to it once.
Boy, that's a bad
good.
show, though. They sound like crap on that.
And I don't think the recordings are great either.
No, it's a board tape. It's not mixed for release. So it's very
I'm like
raw.
a once through, like sooner or later Asylum will go on Spotify. I'll listen to it once and then I'm done. Then I'm done with it. What did you guys think about the appearance on the Grammys?
I'll tell you mine real quick, just because I didn't see it, but I had the singer that was in my band at the time called me. I was working at Pizza Hut at the time. Don't judge, but I was on the way home, and I got a phone call from him, and he was like, "Hey, I just saw Kiss in makeup on the Grammys," and of course, me being a Kiss nerd, I'm gonna get all excited. I'm like, "Oh, really? What'd they look like?" He's like, "They look fat and old." I was like, "Oh." So like that was my first like notification of Kiss back in makeup, was they look fat and old, but like this guy was not a fan in the least either. Gene, I will agree. Gene did not get in shape enough for it, in my opinion. Everyone else did. But I didn't see it at the time. I didn't see it until I think the Second Coming video when it came, because it was a live event. So I missed it. But I was or maybe the Weekend Rock on MTV may have covered it and I saw it there, but Metal Edge covered it, and I was like ready to jump through the damn ceiling when I heard about it, for sure.
So I am one of those weird people. I'm weird. I am a diehard Kiss fan and like hard rock, heavy metal, but I also like 90s rap. So when Tupac was out there with Kiss in makeup,
You about lost your mind.
my God, my fandom went crazy. And I had no idea that it was going to happen. Like, which is why I think it was such a better time.
Yeah.
It was a complete shock.
But I had no idea.
It was also the moment that you knew this was going to happen. At least for me, I knew it immediately. So anybody else?
I always like when you see how much Kiss influenced like other genres. Like you got Tupac as a Kiss fan. Garth Brooks is a huge Kiss fan. Like it always amazes me. Like they did that album where they like all the different artists did Kiss songs.
Yeah, Kiss My Ass.
Yeah, like I dig that stuff. Oh, you got it right there. Nice.
I have that actually. And I don't collect things, but
I don't think I ever heard it. I don't think I ever heard. I heard Garth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it.
Oh, there's some really interesting stuff on there. I think it gets a bad rap. There's some really great covers on there.
The only thing I heard was Garth's. I heard Garth's song.
Well, the one that blew me away was Yoshiki from the band X from Japan. Does a whole full-on piano classic with an orchestra classical version of Black Diamond. It sounds fucking
I love
epic.
Black Diamond too.
It sounds so huge, man. It's like straight out of a movie score. It's really amazing.
He said that word that just kills it for me.
Hey, you don't like orchestra.
Oh no, it's a straight up orchestra piece. If you don't like that, you won't like it. But it has a very big, grand sound to it.
I love jamming an orchestra.
Good for you. The Intrepid press conference. Did everybody watch the press conference?
Yes.
Yep. On the internet.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't watch it live. I heard about it, and MTV on like the Weekend Rock covered it, and then later I got a bootleg video of it from a local record store.
Everybody's thoughts on the press conference. Was everything? What I'm asking is, as a fan, did you believe all the bullshit?
100%.
Victor?
I remember being annoyed at Gene for calling out, bands that were popular at the time and kind of saying that they sucked and, oh, we're going to show them what it's all about.
Yeah.
How the big boys do it.
Yeah. And I was like, really? So the band has been, not for me, but for the general public, the band has been dead for 20 years. The bands that have come out and said, you guys need to praise KISS because they're our favorite band, were the bands that were popular at the time. So I was thinking, I'm like, they're the ones that have helped get KISS and Sabbath back on the map. And the first thing you're going to do is shit on them.
He's just trying to move tickets, is all that was.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're gonna
yeah,
show them how
yeah.
it's done. Yeah,
You know what the
Yeah.
real funny part about that is? The same bands that they were shitting on were the ones that they were copying
Yeah.
for the 10 years before that.
yeah. That's the other side of what Victor was talking about there too. They
Yeah.
were borrowing from him anyway.
Oh, you could do a whole series on hypocritical shit that Kiss has said over the years.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you could make an entire podcast out of that.
Oh, well.
I don't know
That-
why you would want to do that, but somebody could. There's probably great ratings in doing it. It'd probably be a very popular show.
Would be called
Hypocritical Kiss with a K.
or
Ooh,
Hippokist.
a kiss. Ooh, I like that too.
I just remember the press conference and a couple things jump out at me. What sets KISS aside from everybody else is who the hell else comes up with, we need to have a press conference. Let's do it on an aircraft carrier.
Apparently that was a Doc decision.
It's a
He
good
was-
decision.
Which I give Doc credit. He's gotten a lot of hate over the years, but he even convinced Paul and Gene of how big this was going to be. They didn't even buy into that. They thought they might, and initially promoters were even coming at him going, "Oh, well, you can do back-to-back nights at this theater." Because that's where KISS was at that time. They were playing hotel ballrooms. So they were, but actually my co-host and I talked about this. We're like, what would KISS have done if, say, the reunion never happened and Bruce and Eric stayed in the band? I don't think they would have died. I think they would have been fine and they would have had a sustainable, good income. But I think you would have seen them do stuff like headlining Louder Than Life Festival or headlining, maybe not headlining Louder Than Life, but they would be like a Monsters of Rock cruise band. And, like Dokken or bands like that, where you still make a damn good, tidy sum doing that, but you're not the hottest band in the land anymore.
Right.
So I think it could have happened, but to me, I bought all this hook, line, and sinker, and I was bursting with joy when I saw the clips from this. I do remember thinking that Ace looked really haggard, though. I was like, man, Ace doesn't look great. But yeah, other than that, I was so stoked about it.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with what you said, only because we've seen so many bands come back, like Motley Crue, for example, Guns N' Roses, stuff like that. And with the magnitude of what KISS was like, even if they would have, well, Motley Crue's the perfect example. Motley Crue went from playing big stadiums or arenas and whatnot, went to amphitheaters for how many years, and then came back to arenas again. So I think that's what would have eventually happened. Even if they wouldn't have put the makeup back on, I think there would have been a clamoring for them to get back to another stage. And I mean, we've seen it with other bands that haven't been anywhere near as popular as KISS was. Was putting the makeup back on the right decision? Obviously the money as it was. Yeah. So,
and I'm glad they did, I mean, regardless of how it played out, I got to see the original band in makeup. It was magical to me. And I have a very personal story about my show on that tour, but I'll let you guys go.
It says it remains the most profitable KISS tour in their history.
Yeah, I'd absolutely believe that.
and that's not surprising because a lot of people again probably said, shit, let's see this now because we don't know how long it's going to last. And true to form, what in 5 year, one was the farewell tour. It was 01, right?
2001 was the end of it.
So it was a 5 year span. It didn't really last that long if you think about it.
Well, from what I looked on, I did a little bit of research, and it said in little less than a year they did over 200 shows in 25 countries.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember them headlining Download Festival and all the big festivals in Europe and places where they were never that big in their heyday. I mean, KISS was big in the States, KISS was big in Japan, KISS was big in Australia, and that was it. They weren't a big deal in Europe.
You know what? Their mystique, having been distant from it for so long, it definitely built up. And
Well,
it became.
That's what I was going to say. For Motley Crue to go back to large arenas and stadiums, they had to go away.
Yeah, you have to let people miss you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that KISS went away for what, 13?
It was 17 years is what they
Yeah, that KISS
promoting
went
it.
away. They go to this press conference and we're going to do it bigger and we're going to do it better. And then it's just about the worst stage show that KISS ever had.
I'll push back a tiny bit on that. So I think, well, they didn't know. Obviously, like I said, Doc had to convince them how big this was going to be because initially they were like, we'll do an arena, a typical arena. And Doc was like, no, I'm thinking Tiger Stadium. And they were like, are you out of your mind? So they book it. It sells out in like 48 minutes. But I don't think I still don't, still think Paul and Gene went on the cheap for the design of the stage show because they did not believe what Doc was selling them. They were like, it's not going to be that big a deal. So I think that's why we got what we got. But also as a fan though, so I'll do my little spiel here. So for my show on that tour, I saw them on what they called the Lost Cities tour, which was April of 97 was when I saw them on that. So it was the second leg of the tour. And I'd been following it, I'd seen all the hype online and KISS Asylum at the time. It was just amazing thing called the internet at the time. And you could, get people's reviews each night of the tour. So it was really fun to follow, but also realized very quickly into the tour that, wow, they don't change the set list much. But anyway, that's another discussion. But anyway, sadly, my father passed away like several days before the show. And I was in college at the time. And it was a very sudden thing, wasn't sick, passed away from a heart attack at 50, really awful. And I was 21, I was in college, living at a dorm. And this was literally like 5 days before the show that this happened. And I had already bought my tickets and I'd gotten a friend from college that I shouldn't have been hanging out with because we were both into some really bad shit. But anyway, that's another story. But he was scheduled to go with me. So I'm caught up with the funeral, with the visitation, with I'm hanging out with my family. And I was not going to go because I was just distraught losing my dad. I was just like, fuck going to a concert right now. I can't do that. And they convinced me to go because they're like, take 2 hours and get away from all this and enjoy it. Because my dad was not a KISS fan, but he got what made me a fan. So he was a Beatles fan, Rolling Stones, and he liked a few KISS songs, but it just wasn't for him. But he always respected why I was a fan of them. So I was like, all right, I'll go out of respect for him and just to get out of the house for a couple hours. But I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. So obviously it holds a very special place in my heart. It's the most meaningful KISS concert I went to because it definitely helped get me through all that. But yeah, man, that was an exciting time to be a fan, especially like you said, Tony, at the beginning, like we were too young to be part of the whole hoopla in the 70s. So it was like, wow, and it may not have measured up to what the 70s kids went through. I've heard that from people that grew up in that time, like, oh, it still wasn't as big. And that's fine, but I'm sure as hell happy that I got to see what I got to see.
Yeah, it was that big for us.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I feel like it was that big.
So, and by the way, sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks, man. I actually wrote an email to KISS that, thanking them for it. I never heard back, but I just was like, I at least need to thank them for getting me out of my head for a couple of hours because I needed that.
Music does that, man.
Well, Southern Comfort also helped that night, but yeah.
If you'd have slid a $5 bill into that note, Gene would have responded.
Yeah, then I would have gotten a response, right?
Yeah.
No, it just makes me laugh because at the time, like personally, I didn't even notice the stage show. I was looking at
Oh, that
everything
was my
else.
point. Was it was about seeing those guys, not about the stage. So I didn't really care. That was
But
all.
now looking back, it's the things that Gene and Paul have said over and over again when talking about Ace and Peter and how uh, they didn't have to worry about losing. I mean, Paul and Gene have come out and said this over and over again that Ace and Peter were paid employees. They were paid a sum whether the tour took off or it didn't, and at least Paul, I've heard him say, well, we didn't know how this was going to work. And looking back at it now, it's kind of unbelievable, but looking at that stage show, it's believable that they might have been worried that people weren't interested in this. I mean,
Well,
they had to
admitted
be
the second coming.
quickly proven wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? As a lifelong fan, all four of us lifelong fans, like, how can you not expect it to be a big thing?
But I would look. This is KISS we're talking about. The show is everything. I'm convinced that if they knew that they were going to make boatloads of money, there would have been a better stage set up.
But I mean, like for me and you, like I can remember literally being there, seeing them with makeup, and being like pinching myself, being like, "Am I really seeing this band that I never got a chance to see in makeup?
Yeah.
The original four? Oh my god!" You know?
Well, I think that's the one tour they could get away with cheaping out on the stage set because
Absolutely.
the attraction was seeing those four guys back together in that costume and makeup. So they
Yeah.
could have gone up on a bare stage and I would have been just as happy at that time.
Yeah.
Then you get to Psycho Circus, and that's a whole other ball of wax. But anyway, but I have thoughts on that too.
On Psycho Circus?
Yeah,
On-
like on going back to the Destroyer costumes was not a good move in my opinion. And then Ace and Gene both let themselves go on that tour. The stage set I thought, and the 3D idea, it was just all a big swing and a miss for me. I saw that tour live and was not nearly as happy walking out of that as I was on the reunion show.
Well, you can't top the reunions. It stands on its own, but I mean,
Yeah,
I do like that as an opening song. That was a really cool opening song.
it's a cool song, but the two logos on stage bothered me, and then like the glasses didn't work as great as they should have to me. But it also depended on where you stood in the arena. Like, because I also talked to people that stood in different areas, and they're like, "Oh God, it was amazing," and I'm like, "Well, from where I stood, it was terrible." So
Mm.
it just, I don't think the technology had gotten to the point where it needed to be yet for that to really work. But
I give
it
them credit
certainly
for
sold
trying.
tickets. Yeah, they did try, and I give them credit for that. But I don't know, man. Like the reunion tour was magical to me, but I'm also somebody who grew up with the Ace and Peter or the with the Bruce and Eric version. So once the reunion tour was done, and then Psycho Circus bummed me out so much, and then the Psycho Circus tour bummed me out so much, and I kind of enjoyed the farewell show, but even then they were on low batteries, and like
Yeah.
Ace even introduced the wrong song when he was supposed to sing. It was like you could tell he was back on drugs again. It was just like to me, I give me the Bruce and Eric lineup. I prefer it. They were great. They were really awesome to see on the reunion tour, but every show I saw after that, it was a little less each time.
Yeah, I saw them on the farewell tour and it broke my heart because they were just terrible. Peter was and everything was played at half speed.
You could tell they didn't like each other too. It was bad
Yeah.
chemistry on stage.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. And that's why, a lot of times I don't jump on the hating Tommy Thayer bandwagon because the last time I did see them, him and Eric were great, and it kind of helped wash away that image of, oh my God, whatever song, I don't know, just to throw a song out there. Ladies Room felt like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner all of a sudden because it was so slow and long. So,
That's a good tune. I like the bass in that. Steve Harris kills it in that.
It
I love.
It
I know
definitely
that's
wasn't ladies.
I know that's not the point you're making.
Yeah. I wish they would play that song.
Yeah. See, that's that's the whole thing. But
We saw him at Newark, right? On that, in the farewell tour.
no, I saw them with my ex-wife in Virginia Beach.
No, I was telling you. I think we seen him in Newark.
Oh,
at the
okay.
on
My
the, on
bad.
the, on the
It
farewell.
wasn't Newark. It was
Jones
East
Beach.
Rutherford.
East
Oh,
Rutherford. To me, from what I remember on the
Wasn't
farewell.
that?
No, that was
Well,
in
that was
Newark.
the one that was filmed for the pay-per-view, East Rutherford.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
were at that show.
To me, it just seems like the energy was it was obvious to see they didn't have the same energy that they normally would. They were hitting their marks, they were doing their thing, but it was definitely lost it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed.
Oh, I loved it, but yeah,
I enjoyed the Psycho Circus tour and I enjoyed the farewell tour. I'm just comparing them, but like even a bad Kiss show was always better than a show by most everyone else. So
Yes.
Yeah.
so I'm not. Don't get me wrong. It's always been a fun show. The only time I left a Kiss show really disappointed was the time I saw them on the End of the Road tour here in Nashville. The first time they
Really?
came on that tour, yeah. Just because the lip syncing is just, it ruins it, and the track and the and it's all click track, so I felt like I was going to see the Ice Capades. Everything was
Oh wow.
sterile and scripted, and like and maybe the problem is me, because I've told a friend of mine that we bumped into. We were in the nosebleeds. The only reason I got a ticket was it was $25, and a bunch of my friends were going. I'm like, well, I'll just go hang out. So we go up there, initially get in our seats, and we're like, well, yeah, we're definitely at the top of this arena. And then my co-host wanted to go for a smoke break, so we're walking around, and one of my listeners was like, hey, good to see you guys. We have a suite on the side. Do you want to go sit with us? So we get suite access right by the stage on Tommy's side. So we have a great seat. And like, he's going bananas next to me, having a blast. And everyone in the audience is, but me and my co-host are just kind of like, it's just something, there's just some energy that's not being felt like I used to. Like when I would leave a Kiss show, you would just have this kind of exhilarating feeling. And like, that was the one time where when I walked out, I'm like, I don't have that feeling this time. It felt very by the numbers.
So I saw them twice on the End of the Road tour. And Victor, I agree with you. My issue with Tommy and to a lesser degree with Eric is over makeup.
Yeah. I don't like
Definitely
that
not over their playing.
right.
Both times I saw them End of the Road tour, I kind of thought it was funny because Eric and Tommy were tight, killing it. Like I don't think the band ever sounded that good since before they put the makeup back on. But by that time, Paul can't sing anymore.
Yeah.
And
they're
even
tuned
with the
down a full
backing
step.
tracks, you can hear he can't sing.
Yeah.
So, it was like you get one thing and you give up another. And the question that I wanted to ask both of you guys, if they wouldn't have reunited and they didn't put the makeup back on and they stayed a non-makeup band, when do you think they retire?
I guess the X factor is Gene and his side projects, because Paul would have kept it going. I have no doubt. Paul doesn't know an identity outside of KISS, which is why I think he's doing the podcast rounds. But so I think he would. I think Paul's addicted to KISS personally. This whole reason they didn't retire in 2000, because also his divorce took a lot from him. I think that was all to rebuild his finances, which don't blame him. I would have done the same thing if I was him. But like I said earlier, I think they would have survived. Gene's the X factor, though. Would Gene have bailed on the band, and then would Paul have kept the band going if Gene bailed on the band? Because I think Paul would have bought Gene out maybe, and another person comes in. But I think KISS would have continued, and they would have been like a mid-tier festival band, Monsters of Rock cruise headliner. That's my opinion. And they might even still be going now. Well, except for Paul's voice, they would have gone until like the last 5 years, maybe. That's what I think.
Well, and Bruce was very invested. I think Bruce would have taken more of a leadership role in the band. to keep it going.
That's what I wish is they did hang it up original band wise in 2000, gone back to Bruce and Eric without all the hoopla and the makeup, and just become an active theater band. Do something like that.
Yeah,
Because I
could-
love that lineup.
I could agree with that. Like, I would have been okay with that. I'd have nothing to say. Even if they went back with Eric and Tommy, no makeup,
I'd have been okay with that.
I would have, I think I would have stayed on the bandwagon. It's Tommy. When they put Tommy in makeup, I kind of checked out.
Well, I think
I checked out for spending money and going, like, I went to whatever year it was, Kiss and Motley Crue, when they did the Shed tour. I went that year, and it was about halfway through Kiss's set that I was looking around like, yeah, I shouldn't be here. I just didn't feel like I can support this. I don't know what it is, and that lasted until the end of the road. When it came to end of the road, I went twice, and that was for me. Like,
Yeah.
I was going to sell out and be a hypocrite just because I wanted to see them one more time.
But to bolster your argument about Tommy, I think the issue with him is Vinny and Mark and Bruce all had their own identifiable type style and sound and identity. Even outside of the makeup, musically, they had their own spin on things.
Mhm.
Tommy comes in and it's just facsimile Ace. So it's kind of hard to give him that credit, because then some people are like, well, Eric played in Badlands and Alice Cooper and Lita Ford and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I get that. Tommy played in Black and Blue, which I'm not really a fan of, but like they were a legitimate band that put out albums, and he played in some other projects that didn't go anywhere, but he's a good player and he does have a sound. And I think he got more of that sound out on the Monster album. I will still defend him on his playing on that record, because he plays a little more like himself on that. On Sonic Boom, I can't defend him. It's, Ace ripoff licks all over that thing.
Yeah, I like Monster better than Sonic Boom.
I love Monster. I think it's a great
100%.
record. I hate the way it's mixed or mastered, but man, it's musically and it's them writing to their influences. You hear Humble Pie, you hear all kinds of you hear a little bit of Wild Thing, you hear all kinds of their influences throughout that record. So it's more of an honest record to me.
Yeah,
And that can't always be said with Kiss.
Yep.
No,
The
that's
other
true.
thing too is what a lot of people forget is that Tommy was actually in a Kiss tribute band.
That's
Mhm.
true.
So, I mean, that's kind of why he was brought into the fold. Then again, he was around since what, Hot in the Shade, more or less.
He was a helper. Yeah, he was kind of the jack of all trades for whatever they needed.
Well, he started out as Gene's personal assistant.
Yeah.
I
And
personally
I bet
love
you
that.
and I bet you it didn't cost him $13,000 a day.
Yeah. He actually got paid to do that job.
I like the stuff he did on Black and Blue.
I'm glad you do. I can't get into that band. I've tried. I
What
like
is
maybe
it?
two
It's all
songs.
good.
What is it? Hold on to 18?
To 18. Yeah. Hold
Yeah.
on to 18.
I just Jamie St. James. Ugh. Not
Yeah,
a fan.
That's all good, man. Different strokes, different folks.
And that's one band, like my listeners, because I love all those bands from that era, but I've had listeners, why do you give Black and Blue so much hate? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't like them.
That's another thing about Kiss that I always bring up. Like, there's something for everybody. There's some people like that. Like The Elder was another one of those things where I never listened to it because everybody said it's shit, so I didn't listen to it. So I was looking forward to reviewing it, and I like it. But
I'm
like,
sorry.
there's different strokes. But there's good. I like it is too strong a word.
I'm
There's
just playing.
no, but there's stuff
I have
like.
friends that love it, man. I don't get it.
If you, I keep saying I want to see the movie, and it would make more sense with the music.
It would
There's
be a
stu-
better movie than an album.
But that's what like. There's I said it before. If you listen to it, there's some good on almost every song, but then it goes into some weird spots. But
I think it would make a great Monty Python film.
Yeah, actually.
So,
if I have visual behind it, it would definitely be even better.
so do both you guys know who Ken Nardi is?
Yeah, the guy that remixes everything. Yeah.
Yes. Have you listened to his redone Elder,
I tried.
and you still don't like it.
No. No.
I gotta tell you, I like his version a lot better than Kiss's version.
I think his was more interesting for doing what he did with, the limited tools you can do with it now outside of having master tapes. I think he did an interesting job with it, but man, it's I don't know. The fact that so many people greenlighted that album, that whole project blows me away. But anyway, it's them trying to do The Wall.
Well,
and
me saying
failing.
it's definitely not like when we rate all the albums, it's definitely going to be towards the bottom. But it from going to like where like don't even listen to it, it's garbage, and it to me it was better than garbage. It was not. There was some good stuff on a lot of the stuff. I thought
I like a few songs. I like maybe 3 songs.
I don't know if I like a complete entire song. Like there's things I like of a lot of different songs, but I don't know if there's a complete song that I like.
Oh,
There's certain things that could have been turned into great rock songs if they had given it a shot.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's riffs here and there. Like
Yeah.
Only You is a great song, but do we need Gregorian chanting on it? I mean,
No.
I don't know if that was Only You or not. That might be something else. That was Under the Rose. Never mind. But yeah,
But we didn't need it. No.
I do like the solo on Under the Rose. That's a Paul Stanley solo. It's actually pretty great.
I'm saying there's little bits and pieces on every song that I like.
Yeah.
And I would
and-
stand
and
up
I'll-
for Dark Light.
Well, I was
also.
gonna say I'll go against popular opinion. I don't like Dark Light. I think it's a
Oh,
bad song. I
I
like the
love
solo.
Dark
I like
Light.
the solo and what he does, but it's
What say you, Victor?
Come on, man. You know you like bongos and Kiss songs. Give me a break.
Yeah. And when I
Victor
think of
just-
Kiss, I think
Vic-
of bongo drums.
Victor just wants to jam the Crazy Nights.
Hey, that's the album that got me into the band. So like I'll trash the Elder, but I put Crazy Nights up here. So what do I know?
Hey, listen, that Kiss has something for everybody, man.
Yeah.
Look, my personal
timely.
opinion is the problem with Crazy Nights is the production. Like that's the only problem with it to me. I mean, I don't like all the songs, but if it was produced differently, I think there would be more songs, and I think it would get less hate than it gets.
There's definitely heavy riffs on there that are underproduced. Like everybody brings up the Wendy O. Williams version, but like Gene's version of Thief in the Night on that album, that's a slamming guitar riff, but it's layered under all the slick production. So I get what you're saying, but
And I always like, for me, Crazy Nights live was always much better than the recorded version of Crazy
Yeah.
Nights because there
Well, and I
isn't that
think-
overproduction.
the thing I don't get is they would put out singles, but then not play them on the road and then play deep tracks on the road that weren't singles. So like No, No, No gets played on the road
Ugh.
and Bang, Bang You
Oh,
gets played on the road. Like, why do you pick that song?
oh,
But then Turn on the Nights on there, and whether you like Poppy Kiss or not, you have to admit that's a well-written song.
I
should
like
have
that
been a
song.
hit.
The
That
other
song
two you
should
said
have
I
been a
can do
hit.
without.
Why
Which
not
song?
break that out on the road?
Turn Up the Nights. That's a good tune. I like that.
oh.
That's a good song, but like you're gonna play Bang Bang You live?
I don't want
the hell
that
are
one.
y'all thinking?
You can keep that
it's-
one, and no, you can keep that one too.
You know, it's funny. Ken Nardi redid "Turn on the Night" and took all the keyboards out
I
of
heard
it,
that too.
and I hated it. I mean,
Yeah,
I love
actually,
what he
it's-
does.
It needs
I
the
hated it.
keyboards. No, it needs the keyboards. on
Yeah,
that
it
one.
definitely needs it on that song.
Yeah, but I like that song. I think that should have been if Bon Jovi released that song, it would have been a top 10 hit.
You mean Bon Jovi didn't release that song? Oh, it was Bon Kiss at the time. Okay.
It was Bon Jovi, and like I'll admit that they were ripping off but I liked Bon Jovi back then, so I'm
Well,
a
I-
fan.
Well, I get shade thrown at me because I love Dynasty. Dynasty is my favorite album. Creatures and Dynasty are like neck and neck for me.
Dynasty is a very interesting record,
I love it.
like, and it's not a disco album. There's a lot of good rock stuff on there.
My one of my songs all time that is a lost song that's a great song is Hard Times.
Great song. All of
Love that
Ace's stuff
song.
on there is great.
Yeah, 100%.
Save Your Love, the guitar solo on that's a whole story, start to finish, on its own.
Yeah, well
yeah.
said.
Love
There's
that-
a lot
love
of
that
good
song.
stuff on Dynasty. It's just the beginning of this. I think that's
Yeah.
why Dynasty takes a little bit of a beating.
Yeah, I stopped talking when you get to Unmasked. We can go on to the.
But,
I like some stuff on there too.
But think about it.
Nothing stands out for me. It's not horrible, but nothing stands out for me.
There's a couple things that stand out on Unmasked. Again,
I don't like Shandy. You can have Shandy too.
it's a production thing to me. And if they went from Dynasty to Creatures, everything would have been okay.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Would have been
combo.
fine. If they went from Dynasty to Creatures and then went to like Unmasked, it would have been okay.
And Victor saying, "Hold my beer, just give me Creatures."
No, I keep thinking you guys brought up Thief in the Night. I want Ace to do Thief in the Night on Origins 3 just to hear him over enunciate
Right
yeah. Like a thief in the night.
in the night. Right.
Origins 3.
Victor and I pick apart Ace's material every time he puts out a new record. And
Right?
we both get annoyed by the same things. Yeah.
The only thing that bothers me is this Origins shit. Yeah, I could do without the
Mike, now
Origins.
the thing is, like, so Ace broke tradition on the last one because, like, he, you know, the whole idea behind it was to release stuff that he grew up listening to, Origins, right?
Right.
But like, right, but so he broke tradition on the last one and did the cover of Rock and Roll Hell, which was on the Creatures album. All right, so he's already broken the rule. My co-host, when we interviewed him, in my opinion, had the best idea for a cover song for Ace to do for one of these records because it fits his personality perfectly. And that's the Billy Joel song, You May Be Right. You know, it's about a guy that's unreliable.
And
It's got a comedy bent to it. And you could hear Ace wailing on a solo over that chord pattern.
that's interesting. Yeah.
And it fits his
Maybe
personality and
crazy.
his reputation perfectly. And we pitched it to him and he just blew it off.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he was just like, well, I didn't really grow up listening to that. I'm like, well, damn, Ace, but you're not seeing it, like, fits you perfectly. People would love that. Like,
I'm not sure that Ace knows it fits him perfectly.
He did 2000 Man. That fits in there right with 2000 Man.
you should have heard the stuff we cut out of the interview.
Wow.
Anyway, that's a long story.
Did you guys interview him recently?
Last year, yeah, when he was promoting the 10,000 Variants album.
Did you guys ever interview Doc?
No, we want. I'd like to interview Doc, but Doc also is good at giving the same scripted spiel every time because I've watched several interviews with him. So like Gene and Paul, like I've never really wanted to interview them because you're going to get the same scripted
Same old.
answers.
Yeah, that's true.
If Billy Corgan can't get anything out of Gene, I'm not going to be able to get anything.
Yeah, I think they would frustrate me because I want answers to questions.
I
The
want
best
Bruce. I want
interviews-
Bruce more than anybody.
We interviewed Bruce in person at his hotel in 2012, I think, and he was a great interview. Very forthcoming. The best Kiss related interviews we ever got was with crew people. So roadies, sound engineers, and like I mentioned earlier, we did interview Pixie Esmond, the wardrobe mistress for the Dynasty tour, who handled all the costumes. If you ever saw that old 3-2-1 contact piece where they're backstage and then you see the woman putting their costume pieces on them, that's Pixie. We interviewed her, and we interviewed her twice.
Oh, wow.
actually. And
That's cool.
God, she has some of the funniest damn stories. She tells about pulling pranks on Gene and Paul when they pissed her off. Like, you know, she would like take in their costumes to make them think they're gaining weight. You know, it's some funny shit on those interviews. But yeah, not to plug my show too much.
You had Peter. You had Peter Chris.
Plug away.
Peter Chris's wife too.
Yeah, we had Lydia on.
Is that the one? That's the one that did the book online too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because she's. I saw an interview with her. She's got some stories, dude.
yeah, she had a lot of great stories. We interviewed her. Yeah, we've interviewed a lot of people. Moose, Peter Oroquinto, who was one of the original Kiss roadies from the club days. He was the guy who was doing, like, I don't know if you know this, but like at the end of Black Diamond, and you can see a little bit of on the ABC in concert, Peter Criss will grab two different drumsticks and put them up like this, and then like little fireballs would shoot out of the end of the drumsticks. That was part of the show. Well, Moose was on our show and explained that he thinks somebody tampered with the exploding drumsticks, and because he was loading them up one day before the show, and they actually blew up in his hand. It like blew off part of his hand.
Oh my
Whoa.
God.
And he wound up losing his job on the crew because of this. but like in the interview, he talks about mafia ties to early Kiss, like they had mafia backing with finances, and Neil Bogart wasn't paying the bill.
Oh yeah,
Gene referenced it in the biography thing.
that's
But
in
like
the Neil Bogart movie.
Oh, yeah, I think it is. And
It is in the movie that.
but like Moose was talking about, like one of the crew trucks actually got ran off the road, and they think it was somebody related to like owing a debt to, like they were trying to send a message. Like it's
Wow.
yeah, they were into some heavy. Neil Bogart and Bill Aucoin did everything they could, legal and illegal, to
they
keep
owed a lot
keep
of
the
money.
show on the road. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
my
lot of dirty stuff there.
my dream interview is Jesse Hilson.
Oh yeah, we've talked about him too. Yeah, I don't know if anyone. I don't know if he's even alive anymore. He's probably dead by now. I don't know.
He is, as far as I know, he is out of the country. He may be in Spain.
You are an Ultra Kiss nerd if you know that name. Jeez,
Oh,
I don't know that name at all.
that's
Je-
Paul's
Je-
psychotherapist from the '70s forward, and he ripped off the band, took over management, and ripped them off. It
stole
was,
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
lots of money.
Can you imagine? It's one of those moments. Can you imagine you have a therapist for years, years and years and years, and then you hire him as your manager? And if you're Gene Simmons, how the hell do you allow Paul to hire his therapist?
Well, that's where you get into Paul's manipulation and making Gene feel like crap about doing an acting career, and
Man,
he got to call the shots from that point forward, and that's evidence of it right there.
boy, that's a guy I would love to interview. All right, guys. Well, thank you both
Thank you,
for
guys.
coming out and hanging out with us.
That was fun.
Yeah, same here.
For both of you guys, anytime you guys want to come back on, there's an open invitation, and we appreciate the hell out of both of you.
Yeah.
And don't forget, bang, bang you. I'll shoot you with my love gun, baby.
No.
For all our
Thank you.
listeners and viewers out there, signalsfrommars.com and decibelgeek.com both have YouTube channels. If you haven't checked them out, you need to check them out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anything
you.
you ever need from us, just let us know.
Keep on rocking.
It was fun, fellas. I appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
All
All right,
see ya.
guys. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you all for coming out and supporting us. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms, please leave us a review. And if you just found us, check out our past episodes. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel and you like this episode, please consider hitting the like button and leaving us a comment. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes, and check out these episodes right here somewhere. As always, if you made it this far, thank you for supporting us, and don't forget, never forget, if it's too loud, you're too old. Peace out, Hooligan Nation.